Guys, Akariss here, bringing you another Fire Emblem Heroes video. As expected, things have changed. If you've noticed, many things have changed. So here we are in a completely new backdrop because I've moved and life's just been busy. If you still want to keep up with what's going on, I suggest checking out my Twitch stream. Until then, I try to put up these videos every time I can by, of course, recording them during the Twitch streams. So there you go. And those of you that can't watch the Twitch streams, obviously I try my best to upload whatever time and efforts content I can over here to YouTube. So in this particular video, I'm going to pretty much be summarizing quite a few things, which is the new units. So we're going to talk about banner units and my impressions on them. I believe the stats are out, but I'm not really going to touch on that too much. Just going to give you quick impressions on these units. I haven't really looked at them too much. We'll go over the update as well, the refines, and yeah, I think that pretty much covers everything here. So sit back and enjoy this likely decently long video, I would say. If you make it to the end, appreciate it. If you give a thumbs up to the video, I appreciate it. The more you guys can do, the more I can try to put in the time for these videos. So that's ultimately what happens. Me just distributing time where I can. With that being said, I'm going to start with the new units. So yeah, let's do this. Summer units. Starting with a green tome flyer in the form of Eirika. Although we do have her stats right here. So as expected, high attack and speed, lower defense and res. And you'll see that she has that orders effect that's coming from the new attack speed Oath 4, which we'll talk about in a moment. But yeah, effectively here we have her preference B skill, which was on her Brave form, is now available on the summer unit. That alone is pretty impressive because that preference B skill for two reasons is really good. One, flyers don't really have good B skill options. You pretty much are running with like Trace on everyone. So this one comes with Canto 1, which is already really good. But on top of that, it comes with that super strong nuke type effect. So yeah, it's really good. And it's going to make her specials hit really hard. I think the biggest contrast is like that it's not like Canto 2 versus Canto 1, but it is a flyer at the end of the day, and she's going to be just really powerful anyways. The new C skill, Oath, is a great upgrade over what the current Oaths are. So this now effectively is going to give like an orders type effect, and this is for infantries and flyers as well, so it's going to make it pretty good on infantry. But what I also appreciate about this is the fact that it has a like personal attack and speed 3 buff on it. In terms of flyers, you may want to consider rain skills sometimes, depending on advantages versus disadvantage matchups, or if you just don't need the orders type effect because you have like Katria or something. So it's not always going to be the best C skill, but it's a pretty good one. Now the weapon itself has there's a lot of effects that we've come to expect in this day and age. So we have Slaying, and we have an Initiation clause or 2 space within 2 space of allies clause, 5 to all stats. We have a null follow-up, I believe that's just a self null follow-up type effect, and card on the enemy unit. So there's a lot of stuff going on, but on top of that, she also applies guard after attacking and splashes that guard. So there's a lot of good things here for Eirika, and I do think that she's going to be pretty relevant as a one-off unit. If you like Eirika, then this can definitely be worth a spark if you like Eirika or you just want a really strong green tome flyer nuke. The thing that is the most relevant, though, is going to be this B skill. That is what's going to make her very strong. I feel like something like Summoner Duels, she's probably going to see a lot of play there. Next up is Niffle. This was predicted by many of you. We have another Cav Dragon, so that's cool. Colorless, though, so that makes the matchups pretty even across the board. First thing I'll say right away is we finally have res near trace, and a lot of units are going to actually want this, such as Lilith especially. Both versions of Lilith are really going to want this, and Lilith is a great unit, so This is an awesome one. I do think that as well, the OG form of Nifl is going to want that near trace, so there's definitely a few that are going to want this for sure. And Petrine. Thanks, chat. Finally, she comes with a preference C skill, which is already really strong, so it's good to see it again. And the weapon is a bit different. A bit different this time because it has slaying on it. It feels like everything has slaying at this point. Get the attack and speed, and I believe this is a full null follow-up. So it's not just a self null follow-up, but it's actually a full one, which is really good. And we have not a flash splash type effect like OG Nifl, but we have a kind of wind sweep instead, which is also really good because we can totally expect Nifl to be really fast and causing a lot of havoc. I feel like this version of Nifl is going to be really good on air defense. The OG version of Nifl was already really good on air defense. This one's going to be also really annoying to deal with as well. So if you have like your null follow-up, you got your slaying, you got your wind sweep effect, and DR, you got pretty much like everything at this point. Red Sword Infantry, Lyon. And he is obviously the 4-star focus of this banner. Getting lull is kind of nice, I guess. And attack defense ideal 3, I guess, but not really that interesting. This is not really worth talking about in a pool that isn't even... There's nothing really to say here. The weapon itself, having a auto double is kind of good though. A lot of units might appreciate that if they don't have a preference weapon. So I would say Coral Saber is a decent addition to the inheritable pool. But beyond that, there's not much to say here.
Look, a fish. Maintain your composure. It is merely a beach.
Always the stick in the mud.
Okay. 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 Okay.
Don't forget to oil up.
Okay. Okay. Alright. Anyways, Blue Tome Flyer. I think that's a common trend almost every year. Some are leg yarn, some are Corin, some are loot. It's like Blue Tome Flyer almost every year, I feel. So here's another one. So where to start? Stillwater is great. A lot of units kind of want this. For like Elamine definitely wants it. It's good fodder. So good to have more options. Worldbreaker is probably the biggest and most appealing thing here. That is not going to be Astro locked any longer on Thorr users. So I feel like a Wings of Mercy follow-up type build for Thorr is going to do wonders here. So you have someone else initiate, and then the Thorr comes in with Wings of Mercy, and it ends up getting like a sniper or something. You have your other units that aren't going to have to carry Heavy Blade or Flashing Blade or have to worry about getting their acceleration for Gale Force. This is really nice, really good. In terms of the weapon, we have a couple of things here. Slaying, as expected. And then, at the start of turn, inflicts exposure. Yeah. Okay. Exposure puts a debuff on the enemy team, which makes it so they just take additional 10 damage. That's what this means. So that wasn't really clear. But it also inflicts stall on foes. It's going to target the lowest speed unit on the enemy team and splash it. This is pretty good for support. So if you're having trouble maybe engaging, or if you're running into like Yuris or Sigurds or something on the enemy team, then it's going to be decent support. But exposure itself makes Gale Force sweeping and initiations easier to accomplish because you're just applying that exposure debuff, and everyone's going to pretty much secure their kills that way. I'm going to assume that this is also true damage, just because it says deals plus 10 damage. It could very well not be though, but I don't know that yet. Anyways, so on top of that, we have just additional attack -6, attack 6, and that's pretty much it. Not much more to say, but definitely very good for sort of Gale Force type strategies. There's nothing else to really say about the banner. The dual skill, I guess that does require a little bit. So okay, so stat spread is expected similar to OG Thorr, I guess. Dumping speed and defense. and having high attack. It's okay, that's fine. But the dual skill is worth mention because I feel like they still design a lot of these with Summoner Duels in mind. And yes, this is still a very good Summoner Duels type dual skill. It's maybe not the most relevant, but it's still pretty good. So inflicting Grav, and I believe the radius is showed to us here, but also neutralizing bonuses. So somebody like Marth with your quintuple bonus doubler is going to be sad when Thorr is on the enemy team, but you shouldn't be doing that anyways. That builds a meme. Please don't stack bonus doubler like 4 to 5 times. Anyways, this is a good dual skill, has good range, and it's going to be impactful. So for Summoner Duels, I can expect Thorr for sure to see play in Summoner Duels, but also in air offense and potentially air defense as well. Good overall unit, one-off, can do a lot of work. So for the... so I heard you guys like Green Axe Cavs. Anyways, Banner itself has some pretty relevant units. I feel like a lot of these will be pretty good in a lot of places. Lyon is dead weight, and so is Seth. I don't really see them finding any sort of relevance at all, but we can see dual Thorr and Loki, Niffle, and of course Eirika to find a lot of play. So if you like these units, one-offs and Spark can be warranted, but other than that, that's all we got for today in terms of the unit impressions. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Video's not done though. We're going to go into the update notif, and then we'll finish it off with weapon refines near the end. So, in the game, we're going to look at the update notif here and the Tempest trials as well, give you guys my opinions. First, we'll start with the update notif. So, in this particular update, we don't really have too much going on. We have Roy's remix. He comes with Spurn, so I guess it's pretty good if you wanted to fodder him for that. Spurn is probably still the best DR speed skill for tanking, at least in most cases. Human Virtue 2 got lots of different effects on it, but to summarize most of it, you're pretty much giving attack and speed to anything that's not a dragon or beast, and then Roy gets a benefit from it as long as he's within 2 spaces of it, and pretty much gets more stats and some DR. So he's getting a lot of effects. And I did honestly try it in this particular stream. I did try him out in Gale Force with Wings of Mercy, because as you see on the weapon refines when I talk about it, he does have like a tempo effect as well. So tempo plus buffing your allies and just getting a bunch of stats is pretty good. It didn't matter, but it could potentially matter. I think as a Gale Force type unit, he's going to do pretty well now, or at least buffing his allies. Beyond that, we do have Broadleaf and Ephemeras. We do have Hidden Thorns and Home Attack 4. Dorothea. Not much more to say to that. Weapon refines we'll talk about in a moment. Arena Assault is being updated. I believe it's giving almost 50% extra Dragon Flowers, so that's pretty cool. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the weapon, the update notif. Not too much there. Roy is probably the most interesting thing. When we go over here, we have the attack speed push seal and bonus doubler. Now, bonus doubler as a seal I think is actually pretty good. This does mean that it is one of the few seals to give you like 6 to all stats or potentially 7 to all stats. But it does also have counterplay, and the counterplay is the lull skills, dull skills, so close defense 4, distant defense 4, lulls in general are going to hurt bonus doubler quite a bit, and because of that, I think it's going to be actually quite a balanced seal. It's going to be pretty good. I'm going to use it for sure, but it's going to hurt when you run into units that run lull and dulls, and that is all over the place, so still a good seal, as it's going to be one of the few seals that just buff so much stuff. In terms of Seth, he does come with an axe that has a guaranteed follow-up, so it's going to be a good inheritable weapon, and Rally Up Speed. So Rally Up Speed can chain into Rally Up Speed Plus, which means I think on a Zell you can pick up like Duel Infantry 4, and potentially pick up Rally Up Speed Plus if you combine it with like the Summerhell Bindi. But beyond that, nothing else worth mentioning here. Speed, defense, catches, whatever. It's not really the most important thing. So yeah. That pretty much takes a look at the new seals, new update, Roy, and our new units. Let's go talk about the weapon refines. So jump over to this screen. We have over here, starting with Roy. So as I mentioned, I did try him out today in my Twitch stream, and it didn't really matter. It didn't really come down to Roy's refine or C skill making much of a difference, but I do think he can potentially be a very good Gale Force unit. It does also make him pretty solid, I think, as a tank as well, because he does that breath type. It's like a breath or a world breaker type effect for himself. So he's going to be pretty good to just run something like, let's say, Ruptured Sky and just fire off Ruptured Skies, but also for Gale Force. The biggest issue with him is that he doesn't have Slaying, so 5-charge Gale Force is going to be a bit awkward. He's going to rely on, let's say, enemies hitting him back. He can't really run Times Pulse to make him more consistent, and he does score, like, terribly. 175 is pretty outdated by today's standards, so I don't really think I'm going to be bumping up Roy on my fire tier list. I think I'll cover that later with Legendary Xander and Roy and see where they land, but for the most part, it's going to be a different video in itself. Moving on, we have Kjelle. Now, this one is definitely very interesting. Honestly, all these refines are good in one way or another, I'd say, overall. But I do think there's stronger versus weaker ones, and Kjelle is definitely one of the stronger ones. If you don't know what's going on there, she's basically an attack minus machine. And I mean literally attack minus machine. So I've been using Ashnard and Tiki for a long time. For you guys who following me, you know that that's one of my core team setups. Ashnard debuffs foes with -5 off his Gorgorant, and I believe -4 off an attack defense rain. Combine that with Tiki's Divine Mist, and you have another -9 attack, so when Tiki gets into combat, she's usually debuffing enemies by -18 attack. That is very strong, and the reason it's very strong is because when you have disadvantaged matchups, minus attack is one of the best things you can have. The way the game works versus effective damage and weapon triangle is the more attack the enemy has, the more it scales, and the more, like, the stronger the hits are. So to counterplay that, you just lower attack by a massive amount, and therefore things don't hit you very hard. So I've had my Tiki like tank Thrasier and just armor effective type stuff like Micaiah without getting hit very hard because of the minus attack stacking that something like Divine Mist and Ashnard's Gorgorant accomplishes when they're working together. So this is why Kjelle's weapon is very powerful, because you're not only -10 attacking off of the base effect and the weapon refine, but you also have this additional percent type minus attack, which is really strong. So if you don't understand how that works, it's basically comparing the visible base stats between Kjelle and whatever attacks into her. She's not likely to win all of those checks, but she should win some of them. Especially if you, let's say, use her with summoner support, have some merges or some investment and whatnot. If you end up winning those checks, she gets an additional -5% to the enemy's attack overall, plus 10 at the end. So at a minimum, you're gonna -10% attack, whatever they have, but an additional 5% on top of that every single stat she's able to win. That's really powerful because it means that units who just don't really like win the attack checks versus Kjelle or rely on something like, let's say, lethality or Black Luna, or even effective damage, as I mentioned, just aren't going to kill Kjelle. It makes Kjelle one of the tankiest units in the game. If you're able to stack that with something like Hanoka or Ashnard, it even gets even more ridiculous. It's just not going to do any damage to Kjelle at all. So definitely probably the winner or potentially second place of these weapon refines. And if you're a Kjelle fan, you're definitely feasting. I don't really like Kjelle as a unit, so even though I have one, I'm not investing at all. But if you did like Kjelle, you just want like one of the tankiest units in the game, Kjelle is solid for that. Next up is Eirika here. I honestly haven't even read this one, but it's pretty much the whole desperation without having any sort of condition on it type effect. She gets additional attack and speed on there, and it looks like she's just having tempo, plus debuffing either speed or defense on the foe. This is going to make her a better Gale Force unit. If you already have her invested or you wanted a Gale Force unit, then Eirika's going to do that. This refine just pretty much feels like I was already good at Gale Forcing, so I'm going to do it better. I'd rank this about as comparable to like Roy's here. It's not bad, but it's not really amazing by any means. Next up is Mordecai on the left there. That is a huge wall of text, but to pretty much summarize what's going on there, Mordecai had this interesting dynamic where he's able to smite and do debuffs, but now he's also going to smite and inflict a pulse smoke effect. I don't know how I feel about this because smiting in your ally with Mordecai means that he's taking up a vital support slot to do that. So while Pulse Smoke itself is very strong, it's not really necessary in a lot of cases. Like, it's not really going to do much. And honestly, why not just run Pulse Smoke anyways? If you're going to smite in, let's say, a tank who's going to make a snipe unit, like snipe a unit, why not just like run Pulse Smoke anyways, and you just get that same type of effect. It could be really good maybe to survive something or initiate. Let's say you want to smite into a hardy fighter and you need like Ninja Korin to kill that could maybe find some utility there, but I don't know if he can really compete with, let's say, Harmonize Azura to take that slot. So it's a hard thing to argue for, and especially if you're, let's say, on Asher season or Element. If you have Element, then you just like turn off the Hardy Fighter anyways. So it's interesting, but I don't think it's going to find too much use. You still have to kind of force him as a support to make that use. It's definitely decent, but it's not amazing because in practicality, it's not going to find ease of use there. Next up is Panne. Panne also has a huge wall of text, but again, to summarize the most important aspects of that, she's pretty much getting 8 tall stats between the weapon, base weapon, and the weapon refine. And on top of that, she gets an additional 4 tall stats if she's not fighting dragons or beasts. So it's kind of like a contrast to Roy, I guess. On top of that, she has a speed check on that refine, which is going to give her a self follow-up. It's not a self-null follow-up. I think it's just like to guarantee the follow-up. It's just like an auto double. So it's pretty good. Plus, additionally, she's going to have some true damage. So pretty good. Not necessarily bad. She did already have effective versus calves on the weapon, so I think that was already kind of cool. But I don't think it's... I think it's better than, let's say, in most cases, as an initiator, it's going to get the job done. Okay, and finally, Fjorm here. So Fjorm has 2 big changes here. One is that the HP isolation conditions isn't 3 anymore, it's down to 1, comparison of 1. This is actually quite relevant. Anyone who's used Fjorm, sometimes the HP checks can get pretty close, so changing it to -1 versus -3 is kind of huge. And the second effect is that she now neutralizes penalties on allies within 2 spaces. That is an amazing effect. Amazing effect. The reason that is so good is because you officially don't... It makes so many more tanks viable. One of the biggest problems with tanks is like you end up getting hit by stuff like Dark Shrine or Bright Shrine if the tank is running like tons of stats. And this makes her very good for not only isolation support, but once you're done isolating, you can bring her within space of, let's say, an Omni tank with, let's say, Kaden or something, or let's say you're using double saves, and she can use a rain skill on top of that. So it's just really good, but she also has joint drive, attack, and speed as well on that weapon refine. So honestly, in terms of like long-term, I'd say that the best refine here is going to be Bridal Fjorm. And just neutralizing penalties is such a great effect for a support fight. Like, it's huge. It's as good as Cadence, but for a different reason. Second best is probably going to be Kjelle here, I think, if I was to be honest, because that's just... I know how powerful minus attack can be, so I'm speaking strictly from experience that Kjelle is probably very strong here. And the rest of the refines are just give or take. It kind of just depends where you're going to use them. I don't think there's like a loser in this batch. Sometimes you just have these like dead refines. I think all of these are quite serviceable, and if you like the units, you can definitely use them. The one that's least interesting to me or hardest to use has to be Mordecai of this batch, but I don't think it's a bad refine by any means. So yeah, that pretty much covers my thoughts on weapon refines and new units and the update. So if you made it this far in the video, it's not really that long of it, but I tried to cover everything I could for you guys, give you my thoughts and opinions. Thank you for watching as always. That's going to pretty much summarize everything. If you made it to the end, you want to give back, then a thumbs up helps a lot. Subbing to the channel if you haven't already. And of course, just, comments, Patreon, check the link. And yeah, that's it for me, guys. Next video that I try to upload will likely be something related to news, or if we have the time, we'll try to upload something related to a tier list on like just the different seasons and such. I talk about this on Twitch, but we can do that. And finally, as a final announcement, I will be gone the last 2 weeks of July. I'm going to go on a summer vacation, so there won't be any videos or streams during it. That's it for the announcements. Thank you for watching as always. That'll be it for me. Love you all. Peace.